The grid girls were banned yesterday. It follows the darts girls being banned as well. I can't be honest, I prefer the word woman when we're talking about people over the age of 18 who are female, but nevertheless, I can't imagine what harm these ladies are doing. They look very beautiful. They've got beautiful hair, beautiful figures, beautiful faces. They're wearing beautiful little pretty dresses. And they just basically hang around effectively modelling at Formula One. I suppose, let's be honest, something for the gents to look at when the cars aren't racing. Because, hey, 'twas ever thus. Men, generally, straight men mostly, I would gather, like looking at attractive young women. I'm not sure that's going to change anytime soon, despite what the feminazis think. Do I think it's a job I'd want my daughter to do in years to come? No, probably not. Do I think we should be banning women from making their living this way? No, absolutely not. Do tweet me your thoughts. Is this a fight for equality, or is this just really the triumph of tyranny? Tweet me at Talk Radio. You can give us a call anytime as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. But let's put this to a former grid girl herself, TV presenter Lizzie Cundy. Now, Lizzie, you were a grid girl for 5 years from 1990. And by all accounts, you had rather a good time doing it, didn't you?
Do you know what, Julie? It was one of the best jobs I've had. I loved it.
How come? What was so good about it?
Well, do you know what? I love motorsports anyway. I got to meet my hero, Ayrton Senna, no longer with us, but it was such fun. It was all girls together. We all had a great giggle. We got to watch the motor racing. Yes, our legs were showing. We did have, I remember the little skirts and the flags and the umbrellas. But you know what? It was just a great, fun time.
You mean, hold on a minute, you weren't being exploited and degraded, Lizzie?
I wasn't, you know what? And I had cars. I remember we were looked after. I didn't feel degraded in any way. In fact, I felt quite pampered and looked after. It was real all girls together. And I think this is really sad. I had one of my friend's daughters actually that does this and makes a very good living out of it. She was in tears yesterday thinking, what am I going to do? It's a big part of my income. And it's supposed to be the year of the woman. Is it really? We're taking away women's jobs. Surely it's our choice. I understand if people frown upon it, but that's your choice. Don't do the job.
But this is the fascinating thing, isn't it? There's been actually some quite interesting articles, one in The Sun by Joanna Williams, an academic who's written about this, and I couldn't agree with every word more than she wrote, but it's this is middle-class women telling working-class women what jobs they are and are not allowed to do. And these middle-class women, these feminazis who are so angry at this and saying it's all exploitation and terrible, interestingly, no one seems to be upset about these women who are, skin and bone emaciated creatures on the front of Vogue. If it's high fashion, if it's on the front page of a broadsheet newspaper, that's absolutely fine. If, however, it's a woman who's designed to appeal not to fashion-conscious women, but to, I suppose, red-blooded men, then suddenly it's demeaning and awful for women.
Exactly. I was just saying this earlier, because when my friend also, his other daughter is a cheerleader, because they'll probably be the next ones that won't be allowed, the cheerleaders at football. Yeah. And is it this snobbery? Is it a snobbery that people are looking down on it and frowning upon it? Have they actually asked the grid girls or the ring card girls or the girls that lead in the dart, people that, the dart players, if they enjoy it, if what they think, because let me tell you, they all are absolutely distraught about it and love their jobs. Yeah. We had Kelly Brook that was on, I think, Loose Women, who actually did the darts herself and led the dart players on, and she said it was one of her best jobs. So have they actually took the
thought
time
this through?
Well,
again, I would have thought one of the key things about women's equality and independence is the ability to earn your own money, pay your bills, and pay your mortgage. As you say, there'll be hundreds, probably thousands of women who are now worried about paying their bills and supporting themselves financially, because this is a huge part of their work, and it's very well paid work, isn't it? Do you know? Have you got a clue roughly what sort of these women are being paid these days?
Well, they do get paid well from, a couple of hundred to up to 500, possibly more. It depends on how long their day. It's a good payout. It was in my day when I did it. I remember thinking, gosh, I'm going to get paid. It was usually like a 3-day stint, and I got paid very, very well for it, but also had one of the best times. And I've got really fond memories of it. And I think it's an absolute crying shame that it's like the PC's gone mad. It's like the world's gone bonkers. Why? Why can't they do this? Who's frowning upon it, really?
But
A
yeah,
bit
but
of glamour.
that's the key thing, isn't it? Now, what about the women who may be listening, and men as well, who are sitting there saying, "Well, Lizzie, that's all very well. We understand what you're saying, but this is sort of," and I'm trying to think of a phrase they'd probably use, false consciousness. This is you just don't understand that you're being exploited, and men are ogling you, and they're using you for your body. And as one of my guests, Rich Later, was saying, this is a job only available, to young, very attractive women who dress a certain way and behave a certain way, and that's demeaning to women. What would you say to that?
Well, let's look at any brands are sort of like are just got models, beautiful models, men and women. If you've got a pair
Yeah.
of boxer shorts, there you've got a six.
Who's that lovely man who advertises half naked with those M&S clothes? I mean, no one's.
Gandhi, Mr.
Yeah, Mr.
Gandhi,
Gandy.
friend of
No
mine,
one's worrying
very.
about Mr. Gandy being exploited, are they?
And can
And I want you
also
to know,
tell
I
you,
exploit him every day with my eyes. Every day.
but we promote all different kinds of brands with models. It's been going for decades and decades. Now, is that going to stop? Are we going to stop having, models to do the fashion shows that are coming up in February? When is it going to stop?
I'll tell you when it stops. It'll stop when every single man is blind. That's when it'll stop.
But also, may I say, in Austria, they have grid boys. So are the grid boys going to stop?
When you say grid boys, how are they attired? What do they look like?
They have shorts, usually shorts, similar outfits actually, shorts and t-shirts.
Right, we are, ladies.
Please
we
Google.
are off to. Lizzie, are you up for this? You and me. When's the Austrian Grand Prix? You and me. We're off now.
But you see, we've got to have it fair. I think all of this is becoming very hypocritical. That's what gets my goat. It really does, because, it's got to be fair. This is, feminists is all about equal rights. Equal rights for women. Is it equal rights taking away their jobs? Are we going to take away the grid boys' jobs in Austria? It does seem so totally unfair to the women. And I just feel really upset about it. And my friend's daughter, who actually does this for a living, is out of pocket. A big chunk of her income has gone today. And I think it's appalling.
Thank you, Lizzie Cundy, TV presenter, former grid girl for 5 years in the 90s. And she said it was the most fun job she's ever had. So has she persuaded you? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. That's 0344 499 1000. You can tweet me at Talk Radio. I want to know the decision to ban the grid girls from Formula One. Is it a victory for women's equality, as the feminazis are claiming? And yeah, they're not feminists. I'm a feminist. I believe in equality for men and women, treated the same, not based on their gender. If you believe that, you're a feminist. What this is militant, radical, feminazi nonsense. Is it a victory for women's equality, or is this the triumph of tyranny? I want to know what you have to say. The time is 7:15. This is Talk Radio. Right, if you're a Formula One fan, you will know that music. That is the key, well, a little clue in my household for my husband to put the television on mute, because he loves his Formula One. I can't bear listening to it. I don't mind watching it. I don't mind the Formula One grid girls. I just don't want to have to hear the sound of cars racing round my home, effectively. But my guess is all of the people who've been very, very angry about Formula One grid girls and wanted them to be banned wouldn't even know that was the music that was the theme tune to Formula One, because they've never even watched it. But they're offended by the grid girls, so they have to go. Is that what's happened? People being Formula One have been bullied by the PC brigade. I'm sorry, let's be honest what they are, the feminazis, to stop giving women jobs, which they're perfectly entitled to do. Dressing up, looking beautiful and sexy around the Formula One track. Well, if that's what's happening, well, let's debate it, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this on 0344 499 1000. We'll get your calls after 9 o'clock. Do get in touch. But first up, let's hear from two women with very different views on this. Laura Perrins is co-editor of the Conservative Women website, and Harriet Minter, you'll know her well as presenter of Badass Women's Hour here on the Talk Radio from Saturdays at 7 p.m. till 10 p.m. Harriet and Laura, good morning and welcome to both of you. Harriet, can I start with you first? Now, you're delighted with the decision to end the Formula One grid girls, aren't you? And why is that?
So, Gia, I think ending the Formula One grid girls is a sign that actually Formula One has moved to the 21st century. But what I will say is that this is not me and all the other feminazis out there campaigning to get rid of grid girls. This is a decision taken because they've looked at what happened in Hollywood and gone, oh my gosh, we don't want a Weinstein scandal in Formula One. What's the easiest way to do that? Well, we could get the men to regulate their behaviour, or we could just get rid of the girls. So we'll do that. That's what this is about. This is about
Sorry,
men
I
punishing women
wasn't. Can I just
for their own
can I
bad
just
behaviour.
clarify? Has there been a massive big scandal of women who work as grid girls complaining of being sexually harassed or groped? I wasn't aware of that.
No, but they're sitting on it. They're sitting on a time bomb because they do things like Sebastian Vettel, when they had grid boys and Sebastian Vettel came out and said, oh my God, where are the girls? This is nothing to look at. I don't like this. They know they're sitting on something that potentially
Sorry,
in the
is
current
is
climate
that a
is going to blow
crime
up
now?
in their face.
Is that a crime now? I mean, a lot. Of that, I mean, groping or sexually harassing a woman, that's a crime. But a man saying, I'd like to look at young, attractive women," I don't think that is a crime. I mean, last time
The
I looked,
point
I
I
don't know.
made,
They might have
Julia,
changed the
the
law
point I
overnight.
made was that this is about risk assessment for Formula One. They're taking a moral high ground and saying it's a moral thing. There's no morality for Formula One here. It is purely risk assessment for them. That's all
Can I just ask you one final question on this, just at this moment, Harriet? Do you watch Formula One?
Actually, I do.
You
So my
do?
dad was a big fan, so I grew up watching it. But you know, it's an
No,
interesting.
no. Do you watch? No,
it
no.
was
Do you
funny.
watch
I
it
thought
now?
it
Would
was
you
fun
do
then.
whenever there's a Formula One, there's a Grand Prix race, and do you watch it?
If I'm sitting in front of the TV and I will happily watch it, I don't go out of my way to watch it. But I
Okay.
did recognise the theme tune.
All right, I'll give you that. Laura Perrin, so from a Conservative Woman website. Harriet says, look, this is about entering the 21st century. This is risk assessment. This is Formula One having the moral high ground. What do you say to that?
Well, I think Harriet is right. We're all in great danger. And instead of men regulating their behaviour, we should lock the women up. No, Julia, you need to go home right now because I know that there's men in that studio and I've a risk assessed your studio.
Good point.
And, you know, they might get a bit handsy. So please put your microphone down now.
I'm going.
Go home.
I'm going.
I've got a white bonnet for you here and a red cloak. And the same with Harriet. I don't want to hear Harriet on her show on Saturday because I've risk assessed it. And men shouldn't be regulating their behaviour. It's too hard for them to do that. So we should lock all the women up. That's a
Do you
great
think
idea.
that's the territory we're in?
But she's just basically said that. It's the most ludicrous thing I have ever heard in my whole life. It's just astonishing that feminists are now delighted that they're putting other women out of a job.
But this thing, look, it's
beautiful.
not. I mean, I don't know whether you or I or Harriet, no offence to any of us, would actually ever be offered a job as a Formula One grid girl. It's not a job
Well,
I'd
now,
want to
hang
do.
on
No,
a
no, let
second.
me finish, Laura. It's not a job I want to do, and it's not a job. I've got to be honest. If my daughter said to me, "I'm going to be a Formula One grid girl in I don't know 7 years' time," I've got to be honest, I would not be that happy. However, just because it's not a job I don't want to do, doesn't mean I want to stop anyone else doing it.
Well, I mean, this is it. Exactly. I mean, I thought we live in, you know, a liberal society. And, you know, I think there's a lot of snobbery going on here, especially for people who perhaps, you know, let's face it, some people just look down on other women who trade on their looks. They just think there's something kind of unseemly. They're not part of the team. You know, if they're not debating the intricacies of Brexit, they're just, you know, they're just a little bit sad, and we should put them all out of the job.
Let's put that to Harriet Minter. This is fundamentally snobbery, and there've certainly been a few articles written by those on the same side as Laura on this, saying, well, look, you know, and me on this, you know, this is middle class feminazis putting working class women out of a job.
So, as I said before, at no point has any feminazi, middle class or otherwise, said that they want to put women out of the job.
But that's the net effect of what happens.
What they have said is that we need to bring it into the 21st century. And I personally, I agree, I do think there's a level of snobbery about it, because we also need to be talking about this in relation to the women featured in Vogue, in relation to how we treat women at senior
Wait,
levels.
are we going to end modelling now?
If you're not beautiful, if you're not perfectly dressed, if you're not perfectly adorned, you cannot be a woman in the media. Or we say if you're over 50, look out for your job, ladies, because you are no longer attractive to the men you work with.
Well, hold on a minute. I don't think that women should be employed because they're women or look a certain way, or not be employed because they're women or look a certain way. However, unless you're a model or an actress, when that's literally your job to look a certain way.
No, we know this for a fact. So we know that, for example, the most basic thing, we know, for example, that women who have a lower BMI tend to be the highest earners, whereas men with an above average BMI tend to be higher earners. So we judge them by a different attractiveness standard.
Well, no, hold on a minute. That is why you see short, fat, ugly, bald men who are very rich with very, very, very beautiful young women. 'Twas ever thus. Maybe, just maybe, men and women are sometimes attracted to different things. Listen, if you're so concerned about the women who are Formula One girls, and you're so concerned about... No, listen, Harriet. You're so concerned about the models and everything. Are you also concerned concerned about the men who do these jobs. What about all these Hollywood stars, these men who and these models like, say, David Gandy? They're only big stars because of the way they look. Should they be stopped from doing their jobs as well?
Absolutely. And you know, there's only like one.
Joe, did you say yes or no to that?
Stopped from doing their jobs, Julia. I'm saying what we should do is have a more open society, which says, actually, if we've got grid girls, let's have grid boys. If we've got 10 female models with their, in their underwear in a magazine, let's think about how we equal that out on
Why?
the
Harriet, this is where I think you're missing the point. Is that look, Formula One is largely watched by men. Women are free to watch it. Most women choose not to. No, it's okay. And men who are heterosexual. Harriet, let me finish. Men who are heterosexual. I know this is going to freak everyone out here. Often like looking at young, attractive women. You're not going to ever change that.
A business decision and said, if we only market our business to young heterosexual men, we are cutting our market down. So let's open it up a bit.
Harriet, I hate to tell you, I don't think this is a business decision that will necessarily work well for them. Laura Perrins, Harriet says this is a business decision, and Formula One is off-putting to a lot of people because of the people like the grid girls. Do you think that's true?
I think Formula One is off-putting because it's quite boring, and that's why a lot of men watch it, and that's probably why they have the girls there to spice things up a bit. Just please save me from a world designed by Harriet. Oh God, can you imagine the sterility, the boringness of it, the moralism of it? It's just frightening. I mean, they cannot change human nature, and this is where the feminists always fail. Men are attracted to beautiful women. It's very easy to sort of manipulate them out of their money. That's why you have these things. And these women are perfectly happy to exploit their beauty for earning capacity. They're perfectly happy to do that. And the idea that they should be judged for that or run out of town it is like something from The Handmaid's Tale. And it needs to stop.
Laura Perrins, Harriet Minter, absolute pleasure to talk to you both. Very feisty debate. You have to say feisty when it involves women because that's where we're not forthright and forceful. We're just sort of feisty. I have to say one person who was chuckling away in the studio. I was talking about men and men being enticed by these beautiful women. Nigel, of course, yourself.
I loved it.
You like me, would prefer to look at very beautiful young men instead.
That was great entertainment, I've got to say, listening to both of them. And I think that Harriet has got it completely wrong and Laura got it completely right. The good news for people like you and me, because we've learned today that there are such a thing as grid boys in Austria.
In Austria, we're doing a group trip. Anyone wants to come with us?
June the 29th is where it takes place. I'm free that day. Do you know, I remember going into Abercrombie and Fitch in New York, and wonderful fashion store. You go in. A very good-looking boy and a very good-looking girl. Funny isn't it?
But the boys have actually got their tops off. I have to say, when my teenage goddaughters came to visit a few years ago, and they come all the time, but they first said, "Oh, we're going to go shopping on Oxford Street," and we went into Abercrombie Fitch. I was thinking, this is a whole new wonderful world that I could enjoy.
This is not a world we want to be in, is it? Where you have to look perfect all the time. The pressure on young women to look a perfect
the people
way.
whose job it is to look perfect have to look perfect.
No, but what that means for society, what that means for young girls, how they want to look.
I would rather my daughter wanted to emulate a Formula One grid girl's body than a body of a woman on the front of Vogue who hasn't eaten a proper meal in 5 years.
Well, but it's all part of the same problem, is it not? And we've had a situation where Abercrombie and Fitch got into trouble because they wouldn't let people who an amputee have a role there, or something, because you have to look perfect. Yes, but this is ridiculous.
Can I make a confession here? Okay, I love my husband. He's a great father. He's a great husband. We get on really well. He's really funny. And we have a great time.
Where's the butt?
No. I married him. Do you know why I married him? You know why I got to give him? Because I fancy the pants off him. Because he's a really tall, good-looking guy with a great bod and a great face. Hello, darling, if you're listening. I'm sorry.
It was a combination of factors,
girls in the studio, you can back me up. I've done pretty well on that front. I'm sorry. I would not be with my husband if I didn't think he was good-looking. I wouldn't.
You've got to get in the 21st century, Julia.
I need to marry a bloke I don't fancy, so I'm not objectifying men. Oh, goodness sake. I'm going to carry on objectifying you.
Nobody's saying that. Come on,
you
Julia.
boys don't mind me objectifying you.
Men throw themselves at you over the years. You batted them away until you found one that you also connected
I'm
with.
an equal opportunity employer when it comes to boyfriends. I have dated ugly men. I just prefer to marry a good-looking one because I'm very, very superficial. Like this is talk radio. We're going to row about this throughout the travel. The time now is coming up to 8:46. It's been rather a lively one this morning, not only with Brexit, Norman Tebbit and the like, but really chiefly about these Formula One grid girls. Yes, I do prefer the word women when you're talking about over 18-year-olds women, but they're perfectly happy with the term, so I should be perfectly happy with the term. You know why? Because I don't get to tell other people what to do. I get to give my opinion on it. I get to ask them to think about my opinion, but it's not my job to tell other women or men what they can and can't do within the law. You know why? Because we live in a free, liberal democracy. And I want to stay living in that kind of free, liberal democracy. I don't want, whether it's men telling women what they can and can't do, I also don't want women telling other women what they can and can't do. I don't watch Formula One. I don't see the point of the Formula One grid girls being there. I don't see the point of them at the darts, and I've been to the darts. But if the people who run these organisations and run these sports want to have them and the spectators want to have them, I don't see why it's any business of mine to tell them they can't. But some people, it seems, do. I've been asking you to tweet me all morning, and goodness me, we have a pile load of tweets still to get through, asking whether you think this is a victory for women's equality, the end of the Formula One grid girls, or the triumph of tyranny. And I know which way I go on this. I think it's the triumph of tyranny. Instead of men telling women what they can and can't do, we've now got women telling other women what they can and can't do. Well, let's talk about this first with Lauren Jade Pope. Not only is she worked as a grid girl, she actually, that's her main employment now as a grid girl. So she's about to lose out on a heck of a lot of work. Lauren Jade Pope, thank you so much for joining us.
That's okay.
You must be absolutely furious that a bunch of women who probably don't even watch Formula One are saying that you shouldn't be allowed to do your job anymore.
Absolutely, yeah. More than agree. I mean, I've been doing it for, over 8 years now. So.
And is it good money?
Yes, absolutely. It's a good form of income. And as I say, there are a lot of my friends out there that do this. And this is their main source of income, whether or not they're saving up to while they're studying at uni. And they even are full-time mums out there that are using this money to help out on childcare, food on the table.
Yep.
So why can't we do this job?
Well, exactly. And his independence, the view seems to be that this is demeaning to women as a whole. You're being employed because and I've seen your picture on Twitter, you're a very beautiful woman, got a great figure. You're being employed because of how you look. And that's a terrible message to send out to women and girls like my daughter about what women's role in society is. So what's your answer to that, Lauren Jade?
To be honest, though, I mean, there's women out there that think that we aren't good to look up to, but yet we're not airbrushed. We wear the appropriate clothing. We interact with the public. It's all about this talk about negativity and body image and being objectified. Yeah, it comes all from the magazines, but people not being actually educated and respecting each other.
And are you being exploited? There's been a lot of talk about, abuse in Hollywood, Harvey Weinstein stuff, abuse in the city with the President's Club. Have you been, groped, sexually assaulted, badly treated?
Absolutely no, 100% no. I've never gone into a job unless I'm absolutely happy with it. And within the 8 years that I have experienced, I've never once felt uncomfortable to be in that position.
And have any of your friends in that job expressed any concern about it? So what would you like to say to those who are listening? And it has chiefly been women. And I've been told off already, the show, about calling them feminazis, but I think that's what they are, telling other women what they can and can't do. What would you say to those who are listening right now about who think that you shouldn't be allowed to do that job anymore?
Well, to be fair, we're hard working like any other person out there. We're just choosing to do it differently. Why can't we choose to work what we want to do? It's so-called feminists. These feminists are supposed to be out there standing up for each other as women and doing what we want and can't do. So why is this any different? We should be allowed to do what job we want to do.
Lauren J. Pope, thank you very much indeed. Grid girl, now out of a lot of work there because she said it's good money, never felt exploited, never felt badly treated. Barry Hearn, he's chairman of Matchroom Sport. He is the man who has been behind the recent revivals in not just darts, but snooker and boxing by bringing in the glamour, bringing in the scantily clad, beautiful women and the music and the lights and the glitz and making them popular popular all over again. Barry Hearn, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning, Stu. Well, I've actually been one of the people who's very much enjoyed going to the darts at Ali Pali in Wembley Arena. I've stood there, held up my big "I'm a darts widow" sign as the likes of Phil Taylor. He's walked down with his 2 glamorous dolly birds on his arms. I have to say, didn't seem to do me any harm as a feminist woman to see these women. Why have you decided to give up the women? Have you been bullied into it?
I'm very pleased to hear your comments because I don't have a problem with walk-on girls either. I think they're part of the show, but I know I'm old and I'm old-fashioned as well, so forgive me for that. We live in a changing world, don't we? Whether we like it or not, we have to live in the real world. And the decision of what goes on TV is a decision made by the TV companies. They're the ones that point the cameras. They're the ones that pay the money. And in the real world, we have to listen to them. Our job is to listen to our customers, both live fans, sponsors, and TV companies.
And was it the TV companies
Yes.
and the sponsors saying we're not happy about this?
The sponsors were happy because obviously these girls usually walk alongside the players with the sponsor's banner on. So effectively they're losing some exposure. But the questions for the TV companies was, in today's changing world, is it appropriate? Is it part of our editorial policy? And probably the dividing line is, what do they actually do, these girls? Well, they don't actually do anything. They just walk towards the stage looking very nice. Is that part of a sporting event? So there's a bigger question here, and I think Formula One have taken the same. I think they've been under the same pressure and they've taken the same decision. But
is it actually them sort of having a big sort of think about this and their thoughts on women's place in society, or is it that they're being bullied into this? Let me read you a tweet that I've had from Forest Cyclist. He tweeted to say, "This is another. This is all about the Formula One girls after the darts girls. Yeah. This is another totally irrational and unnecessary response to those who are professionally offended. What next? Ban red carpets, ban music videos, ban fashion shows. It's a slippery slope to fascist censorship," he says.
Agreed. I agree in principle with what he says, but all I would say is, for my purposes as a sports promoter, I have to listen to my TV companies because they pay the wages, they pay the prize money, in the same way as they change football kick-off times, for example. I mean, it's nothing to do with girls, but it's the power they have. Now,
and the customer gets what the customer wants.
Exactly right. Now, in this particular case, they've come out with their opinions of what is right and wrong in today's society, and it is a bigger censorship sort of thing. We've made it clear that we don't agree with them, but we have to listen to them. What we're saying to the TV companies is, look, the day that the head of sport from ITV, BBC or Sky, the 3 principal broadcasters that I deal with, the day they say to me, actually, we don't have a problem with it, we can film it, they're back. They're back.
You'd have them back in a heartbeat. And have you had any reaction?
That those same broadcasters, or some of those broadcasters, will be taking overseas feeds from some of my hundreds of events around the world, which will feature ring card girls, because the TV company is taking a feed and they're not providing production and not responsible for what goes on air. So there is a sort of a double standards here. But again, people have got to understand, whether we like it or not, we do live in changing times, and the perception of women in certain roles is changing, and we have to listen. Yeah,
okay. And do you think, I mean, in terms of, has there been a backlash from your your viewers?
I think there's a huge backlash. I think something like 30,000 people have signed a petition that they want the ring card girls reinstated. And certainly, if any of the TV companies in this country reconsider their position, we'd be very happy to put them back.
Okay, well, Barry Hearn, thank you very, very much indeed for joining us. Absolute pleasure. Chairman of Matchroom Sport. He is the man who's brought darts, snooker and boxing. Well, I have to say, he brought them into the 21st century, made them fantastic spectacles to watch. I've gone to darts, absolute hoot. He said 30,000. He said 30,000 people have complained. That's the backlash. It's probably more than the people who've ever complained about the problem in the first place. Again, I genuinely think this is tyranny. I really think this is people telling when men tell women what they can and can't do, what they can and can't wear, then we call that oppression of women. So why do we think it's okay for women to tell other women what they can and can't wear? I find this very worrying. Damjani Finchy says, agrees, it will not stop here. We are on a very slippery slope. And Yield Sausage, loving your Twitter handle there, Yield Sausage, if the cultural Marxists have their way, and they are certainly in charge right now, there will be no freedom of speech, no freedom of expression, no freedom to wear what you want, and no freedom to do the job of your choice. And just another final one here. Miles says, I feel for these girls. He says, I can't be comfortable seeing people celebrate others being made unemployed. What if the walk-on girls and grid girls need the money? What if they have kids to feed and bills to pay? Is making a point more important than that? Very good point indeed. Thank you very much to you for your message, and thanks to Barry Hearn as well. Right now, though, let's talk to Roy Lilly. He's a former NHS Trust Chair. We're going to talk to him about the latest performance figures for the NHS, which are due out any minute now. Good morning to you, Roy.
Julia, good morning to you.
Good morning. Well, unfortunately for you, we don't have any walk-on girls looking very glamorous to bring you into the studio. And apologies for that. No glitz and glamour for you.
Well, where's the dry ice and the music?
I know. I'm really sorry. We'll get that sorted next time.
NHS is walking into the stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be, shouldn't it? Now, what are we expecting to see in these figures? Because we were told we were facing this massive big NHS crisis, and there was a point when it looked like it was very bad. A load of routine operations were cancelled, freeing up some bed space for a few months. Those operations, I mean, people will be waiting for those operations now for many more months as they fill up that backlash. But the reality is we haven't seen the full-on NHS winter crisis that we were told we were going to get, have we?
Well, I think it's been pretty full on. And it's been managed better this year than it has been. And of course, cancelling the elective operations, that's where people are on a waiting list for a new knee or a new hip or whatever. That's given a lot of headroom in the system. So we've been able to get people sort of in a bed, even if it's a surgical bed, when we really need a medical bed. So, and you talk to the staff. I'm in daily contact with people, and it's absolutely chock-a-block still. I think the flu. What I'm really interested in is two things really. When the numbers come out, that's the reported incidence of flu, which went up by 24% last week, and also I want to look at bed occupancy, which is well in the mid-90s last week. Those two indicators really are the ones to watch for. My guess is, and I'm taking a guess here, I'm doing a bit of a mystic Meg, but, don't go and buy a lottery ticket on the basis of what I'm going to say. But my guess is I think the flu has leveled out. But that isn't to say that not to overcomplicate this, but this is like flu A and flu B, and it's likely that we'll get a resurgence of this in mid-February, because that's kind of what happens in previous patterns. But I think the flu is leveling out. And I think the bed occupancy levels are still well over 90, but they're just being managed. So I think the NHS has kind of got its head above water.
But only just. But also the key thing about that, Roy, is it's a matter of luck, whether or not we get a particular strain of flu that mutates, that we have got a flu vaccine for, or we want the one that hasn't, or one that spreads more widely. And as you say, even without a proper epidemic, we have pretty much total occupancy of every bed, and that means that if something does go wrong, we simply don't have the beds to treat people.
Well, no, you're right. I mean, the NHS has got about 140,000 beds, and when they're full, they're full. There's been a big effort this year to get people jabbed up with a flu jab, and there's been adverts on the telly and all the rest of it. But when it's full, it's full. And of course, the big problem then is getting people home. And how many times have you and I rehearsed the same arguments and had the same debate around the fact that at the end of the day it's social services that can look after frail elderly people. If a frail elderly person comes into hospital with a flu, they'll probably come in with other things as well. They'll come in with a bit of congested lung problem. They'll come in with blood pressure. They'll come in with diabetes. It's what the NHS calls comorbidities. That means there's more than one thing wrong with them. I mean, years ago, things that would kill you, they don't anymore. We just live on and take a tablet and keep going. But when people who are elderly, who are frail, and don't have a great deal of acuity get wiped out by the flu, actually, it's not it's not that difficult to sort them out. I mean, it takes a huge amount of skill and it takes a huge amount of time, but it can be done. And so, the NHS is actually really very efficient at getting people through A&E and getting them into a bed and looking after them, getting ready to go home. The difficulty then is these patients are often very frail, and to get them home safely, they do need support. Even if they go to a care home, they will still.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's all these knock-on effects, often outside the control of the NHS. Roy Lilly, thank you very much indeed, a former NHS Trust chairman. Roy Lilly, sorry, you didn't get the glitz and the glamour. We're going to bring the glitz and the glamour into the studio tomorrow. After all this talk about these grid girls of Formula One being banned, they're out of a job. We're going to get one in the studio tomorrow, helping us out, looking glamorous and beautiful. And to even it out, we are going to get butler in the bath equivalent. I don't know. A grid boy. I want a half-naked man in the studio, and I want him now. I'm going to put that in my contract every morning. Okay, they told me I can just do it. Yep, we're going to do it Friday morning. It's happening, folks. You do not want to miss this. We'll get the video cameras on. We'll get the photographers in, and I'm gonna be having some grid girls and some grid boys in the studio tomorrow morning. This is going to be fun.